Burnout is hard. It's overwhelming and can feel disastrous. I'm finally accepting that what I've been feeling for a long time was burnout. I know that this word gets talked about quite a bit, especially in the art community, but I think everybody defines it slightly differently. It can be more or less debilitating from case to case. I've been trying to tell myself that I'm not feeling burnt out, that I'm just taking a day off from my art. More like 182 days, or 6 months. I did some small projects here and there, so it wasn't like a total, cold turkey, but nothing major. I realized that after this long of no major art pieces, I need to ask myself a terrifying question. Do I want to do art anymore? Art has been my whole life. I was always creating something, so the idea of deciding that this was the end of my journey was not something I wanted. Shortly after, I realized that I wasn't burnt out from art as a whole. I'd paint sometimes and do some sketching. I planned and designed my garden. I did various little decor changes in my house. I wasn't tired of all art, just one specific aspect of it, and that was digital art. More specifically, digital painting. It took me a long time to realize that I was burnt out because I wanted to make art, but I also didn't want to make art at the same time. I've been in this rut for so long that it feels like I'll no longer be able to create anything like I did before. That I had lost all the skills I've learned. To be honest, I still feel that way a bit. Some of it might be true. I may be a bit rusty jumping into a new digital painting, but I think there just comes a point where you need to accept that. When you don't do something for a while, you're gonna be a bit rusty, and that's just the way things are. Sometimes identifying the source of your burnout can help you start to move forward, instead of just focusing on how much art you're not making. For me, it started in February when I was preparing for my first ever market. I hadn't made many products at that point, so I was working like crazy to make some. After the market, I took a week off from art. And then I took another week off. And another week off. During the 6 months, I crocheted, made some clay sculptures, and did a small amount of graphic design here and there. Nothing too significant, if I remember everything correctly. I did start some art pieces, but I still haven't finished them, which is a habit I thought I had broken a long time ago. I looked at those unfinished paintings as failures. I really do hope to finish them one day, once I am back making art more. I'm learning how to get myself out of the claws of burnout. Anyone who has had burnout knows the frustration of wanting to create but not knowing what, and if you can. That's the big one. I started treating every idea or moment of inspiration with curiosity. It's hard because those moments can be so fleeting. Sometimes artists fall into the trap of only creating when they have a moment of inspiration. Many don't realize that inspiration is something you can cultivate. This is what I've been working on. What I've found helpful is not telling yourself that, oh, this is a bad idea. Don't brush it away, but when you have that tiny idea, approach it with interest. It's hard to retrain yourself, and I'm still working on it, but the more you train yourself to appreciate the random small ideas that may or may not turn into something, your brain will be better able to give you that inspiration you have been looking for. That's what my unfinished pieces are. I had a small idea that maybe I usually wouldn't humor, but instead I started to draw. And I think some of those ideas are good ideas. It's just a matter of finishing them. I felt so rusty in my digital painting skills that I think the ideas I have might be a little too complex for my skill set at the moment, which I'm not saying if you don't have the skills to not do a painting that you have an idea for. I think you should do it anyways. I mean, I tried to, but then I'd get distracted and not work on it for several weeks, and then the painting just sat there. And like I said before, I really hope to finish those paintings. There's a couple of them that I think would turn out to really neat paintings. But back to my point, there's a catch to all of this, or so I've learned, that I need to minimize my distractions. There is nothing wrong with admiring other people's art, but when you're in the middle of burnout, it's important to make sure that you are enjoying looking at the art, and it's not making you feel even worse about not creating. I found getting out of my routine and sketching outside with some music was really helpful. Saying all this, I'm not against forcing yourself to sit down and create. Sometimes that can be very necessary to kickstart the creative engine. As long as I am making sure I'm not doing the things that got me into this mess, a little tough love can be a good thing. I'm not home free yet, I still have work to do, but if you're out there feeling a little bit burned out, then know you're not alone. I know everyone says this, but it's true, so I thought I'd say it too. I also want to mention that maybe you're just in a period of life that doesn't involve big creative projects, and that's okay. You don't have to do art your whole life. For me, I think sometimes there's nothing left of me if there isn't art. Just because you don't do art now doesn't mean you can't pick it back up later. It's not the end of your creative journey if you don't want it to be. I'm saying this more to myself than anything. I love making art. I'm just a little tired right now. Sometimes I'll work on a creative project that has nothing to do with the kind of art that I think I want to be my main focus. I wish I filmed it, but, hindsight's 2020. I made this plant shelf for my little art room. It's not perfect, and it's not my usual sort of art project, but I had so much fun doing it, and I had such energy to do it, that it's the kind of passion I wish I still had for my digital art. My bird is making noises. This is not a video of how to get out of burnout necessarily, though I hope there is some things in here that could maybe help you look at it differently. I don't know if there's any one set way to get out of burnout. You see those videos that are like, here's a trick to make you want to draw again, and they're usually just drawing prompts or, just telling you to take a break. And sometimes that can be helpful. Sometimes all you need is just a good idea or a push in the right direction. But there's also just a reality of it that this is something that if you're a creative person, you're probably going to deal with. Especially if you're trying to make your art into some kind of profitable hobby or even a business. There's going to be times where you're just exhausted and tired, and your creative fuel tank is empty. Keep an eye out for those little moments of creativity that aren't necessarily your usual idea of art. That can be designing a flower bed, or reorganizing an area in your house, or building a shelf of fake plants to make your art room feel less like a dungeon. Sometimes projects like that can almost be more helpful than just sitting down with a list of drawing prompts and hoping that something good comes from it. Sometimes you need to remember that this whole creative thing can be fun. And you don't have to sit down and, if you're a watercolor painter, you don't have to only do watercolor. And if you're trying to make that your business, you probably have to do that most of the time. But that doesn't mean you can never do anything else. I don't know if this is true for everybody, but creative people tend not to stick with one sort of creative outlet. I'm sure there are people who just, they do one thing and that's it, and they're happy doing that one thing. But I am not. I do love digital painting, but I also love watercolor painting. So I guess all I'm trying to say is that just because you are burnt out in one aspect of your creativity doesn't mean that you're totally unable to create anything. I think we need to maybe broaden our idea of what art is. I'm still gonna work on digital projects and animations and all those kind of things because I think that is my main passion. I think I'm going to focus less on making large digital paintings, even though I did just finish one. That's kind of all I have to say. I kind of rambled on for a little bit, but I hope it was helpful to you if you're struggling with burnout or maybe some different ways of thinking about it. And the next time you fall into that trap, it seems to be inevitable, but I'm just working on trying to prevent it. Alright everybody, see you in the next one. I just want to clarify that this video was recorded a few weeks ago, and I'm actually currently participating in Inktober. For those of you who don't know what it is, just a quick rundown. It's where you use a prompt and draw something every day. There's more rules if you want to go the more traditional route, but I stick to it very loosely. I choose my own prompts, and this year I'm actually doing like a color palette challenge. So in all of my pieces, I turn my screen to grayscale so that I can't see any of the colors, and I use a random palette from just a random color palette generator, and I bring that into Procreate and use that to make my painting, and then I switch my screen back to regular mode, and then I can see all the colors and see whether or not it turned out. Which, sometimes those color palette generators, man, they just get ya. Anyways, all that aside, if you're interested in seeing what I have currently created for Inktober, I'll link a playlist below or somewhere. It'll be linked somewhere, and you can check that out. I'm not drawing on the weekends because I figured I could use a little bit of a break, and also that way I don't get too bored of the challenge. So I'm not doing the full 31. I'm doing, what's that, like 20 something? I don't want to do the math right now. So I guess that's just a long way to say that this video is actually a little older as it comes out than some of my other videos are. I usually don't leave them this long. About at the end of September, I decided I wanted to participate in Inktober this year, even though I wasn't feeling a whole lot like art. And this is one of those situations where sometimes just sitting down and making yourself do it is the best thing you can do. If you've tried everything else, maybe participating in Inktober would be good. Now, I want to preface that I've gone into this with all of my pieces do not need to be full finished pieces, since a lot of them I'm creating in a couple hour span instead of my usual 6 to 8 hours. They won't be the fully rendered pieces that I'd usually show, but I think that's okay. I think sometimes it's good just to show our quick art. Anyways, I'm actually done this time, and we'll see you in the next one. Bye.